Hello, everybody. Dr. Lonnie Stewart here from the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast. Are you a physical therapy student about to start studying for the National Physical Therapy Examination? Or maybe you're a professor, a program director, or clinical instructor who teaches DPT students preparing for the NPTE? Either way, we would recommend checking out our sponsor, NPTE Final Frontier, and the community they've built around preparing for and succeeding on the NPTE. That exam and the preparation that goes along with it can be long, tedious, difficult, and stress inducing, but it doesn't have to be. NPTE Final Frontier has the tactics and resources to help address all of the usual barriers. They even have scholarships to help with NPTE study courses, FSBPT registration fees, and even research opportunities. And if that's not enough, they're even donating to the very first annual HET Podcast Scholarship to be awarded at the end of every year. Go to npteff.com for all of the details and use code HET for 10% off all purchases. Links to both the NPTE Final Frontier and their scholarship options are available in the show notes. And now, let's get ready to learn.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Teach Me Something Tuesday episode of the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. F. Scott Feil. Today's episode is kind of brought on by a recent interview that we did regarding basically the art and the science of teaching. One of the things that this guest and I talked about was basically the fact that when you've done it for so many years and you just get really good at it and you've done the repetitions and you've, been in practice for many years and you just start to see pattern recognition because you've done it so many times and seen it so many times, you can tend to forget how hard it is to learn something for the very first time or see something for the very first time. So one of the things to be mindful of is maintaining that gap and recognizing that gap of where students or learners are and where you'd like them to be by the end of the course, right? Or the lesson or whatever it may be, right? They're at point A, they don't know much or they don't know any of it at all. You'd like them to get to point B where they're, at least safe practitioners of the thing, or they know enough to then go on and be tested on the thing or teach the thing, whatever it may be. But you've got to keep in mind that the journey from A to B is a winding one sometimes. It can take several different aspects or different ways to go about teaching the thing. So we have to remember that there is that gap between point A and point B and that transformation they're going to undergo and where you want them to finish up at, right? So keeping in mind that there is that gap and that, even though you've taught something and mastered it and maybe have done it 100 times, many of these students are seeing it for the first time or hearing it for the first time, and they've never experienced something that you may have seen a bunch of times. So just recognizing that there is a gap from, what you know in your knowledge base and what you're educating them on to what they've gone through and what their life experiences are. And, again, if you're somebody like me who maybe transitioned from English major to physical therapist, didn't have any experience hardly at all in a lot of this stuff. So it was first time knowledge for me often. So just keep that in mind and then recognize if you plan to get your students from point A at the beginning of a semester or a lesson to point B, right? That transformation. And at the end of it, point B, they have the knowledge and the knowledge has been transferred. Then you have to then repeat that and start over and wipe the slate clean for the next group of students that come in. So the next trimester or semester of students or the next group or cohort of students to come through your same class, right? So if you keep that fresh thought and that fresh reinvention each time, keep the things that are working for teaching and educating, get rid of the things that aren't, make them better, and try to keep crafting and honing your skill. Eventually, you'll be able to close that gap and really help the students that are struggling learn and go from point A where they maybe don't know anything to point B where they know enough to be successful. So keep in mind that gap exists. Recognize that some students are coming in and have no knowledge base. Maybe they have a little knowledge base. Maybe they're, experts. Maybe they've been in the clinic and they've been doing it for a while as like a PTA or something like that. But you have to come at it as if they're learning it for the first time. And keeping that in mind and keeping that gap, that knowledge gap in mind, will help you get that transition from point A to point B. So I hope that was helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Hello, everybody. Dr. F. Scott Feil here, and we don't do this nearly enough. I wanted to thank you as an audience for being here, for listening to the shows. Without you guys, we wouldn't have anybody to geek out with over education and learning and teaching and educating. So, thank you for being here, for being faithful listeners over the years. Also, if possible, we'd love to ask a favor. We don't do this often, but if you could leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to this podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. It helps boost our rankings and our algorithm and really just helps get this message out to more people out there in healthcare education who may need, some of the episodes and the experts that we interview. So if you could, like I said, leave a rating and review, we would greatly appreciate it. And we will see you on the next show.